So today's session is how to get better results from social media ads with me, Rich Brown from QuickBuy Design. I've been doing the Facebook ad thing for 5 or 6 years now, probably a bit longer. I used to work in the charity sector, so that's where I kind of first cut my teeth on it. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've really taken a concerted effort to really go for it and specialize in this area, to be honest with you, because just the way that the social media platforms were going, it was a huge area that I realized was going to be beneficial to a lot of people. So it's probably the one area that I would kind of confidently say, above all the other digital marketing areas, that I am an expert in nowadays. The ads that we run, the contacts that we have with the big social media platforms to get the kind of inside track on some of this stuff. So hopefully the things I can share with you today you'll find useful and you can put into practice. So rule number one of if you want to get better results from your social media ads is don't boost the post. And to be honest with you, I could leave this presentation there in terms of like answering the question. Now, this obviously refers to Facebook mainly, and a lot of the examples I'll give today will kind of naturally mention Facebook because that is the biggest one of the ad platforms. It is the one we have most experience in. But boosting posts, although they can be good, they are good for visibility. And I know that other digital marketing experts out there will really kind of push the benefits of boosting posts. In our experience, though, for the majority of people that are using ads on social media, particularly Facebook, to generate leads, business inquiries, whatever it is, boosted posts really aren't worth doing, in our opinion. Like I said, they can be good to get your message out there very quickly to a lot of people, but they're very basic in the terms of the things they let you do, and pretty much everything we're going to cover in this next kind of 30, 45 minutes, you can't do any of this stuff with boosted posts. So if you just have the occasional boosted post for 20 quid once a quarter or so, fine, not an issue. But if you're finding yourself boosting posts on a regular basis, so, you know, every month, or if you added it up over the last 4 or 5 months, this is what tends to happen, is someone will think, oh, well, I've been boosting posts, I've been spending £20 a post, and I've probably boosted 10 in the last 6 to 8 weeks. You know, that's £200, and that is a lot of money in an ad spend world. And you would have got a lot more results, better results from spending that money on a proper ad rather than doing the boosts. So rule number one to take away from today, don't boost your posts. So there's 3 key points to running an ad, but because of the time, because we want to touch on one in detail, we're only actually really going to go through one of those today, but there are three key areas to when you're starting to structure an ad. And those 3, it's all about what's referred to as your ammo. So it's your audience, your message, and your offer. So the audience is the one actually we will cover today. So I'll skip that one out for now. The message is the wording of your ad, the wording that you use. It also involves the imagery or the video that you might use. And so obviously that has to be appealing to your target audience. That needs to be engaging. But to be honest with you, you won't know how good and appealing and engaging your message is, your wording and image, or your wording and video is, until you start running the ads. And the ads are very good nowadays. They do enable you to do some A and B testing, so you can see what different things work. You can edit these ads at any stage. So it's a key thing, but we won't be kind of going through that today because that's something you'll really see once you start getting into it. The other key aspect to it is the offer, the kind of call to action that you're asking people to engage with. It's important to get that right as well, obviously. But again, until you start showing your ad to people and presenting them with that offer, you won't know if it's really going down well or not. So they are key areas. I'm skipping over them, not because they're not important, but we want to focus on audience because there's just so much within that you can do to start with that will really set your ads up and give them a good starting point. And also it's the area of it which I feel best reflects just how effective and just how targeted these social media ads can be. And again, why boosted posts aren't necessarily the greatest things. They don't allow you to do some of these things. So the audience. So the audience is the people you want to see your ad. So all the social media channels have a similar kind of terminology for this. They refer to as an audience. This is the group of people that you want to see your ad. Now that size of that group of people can vary depending on the criteria that you set it. But you say to the social media channel, here is a group of people, the audience. here is some money, and I would like you to show this ad to some of as many as you can people within that audience. So an audience is the people that you would want to see your ad. And there's a few ways to do it. And the few kind of rules on audiences to start with is kind of basically not to get carried away. I'll come on to it in a minute, but you can get very, very targeted with this. And I have made these mistakes in the past where you can really, really get very micro targeted with who you can build as an audience to show your social media ads to. And it can get quite fun, but you don't want to get too narrow too early because you might have missed your audience a bit. So that's kind of one of the tricks with it. You don't want an audience that's too broad, but you also don't want an audience that's too narrow. And it will depend on the budgets that you would have, but taking a kind of guess, and the majority of people, probably 90% of the people that we run social media ads for, they have around probably about £100 a month to spend on these ads. And so for a budget of about £100 a month to spend on these ads, you wouldn't want an audience size of anything probably between 20,000 and £250,000. That kind of size. If you go bigger than that, if you start to get into the millions of people within these audiences, it's not as targeted, and you need to spend more money to kind of make a bigger splash within that audience base. So don't get too narrow too early is the first thing, because you can get a bit carried away with it, but you might miss the mark and you might not actually be targeting the right people. So that's the kind of the point to make, really, is that you need to make sure that you are targeting the right people with this. And there's a term which has been used, which is basically let the social media channel work its magic. So with the audiences, the idea is, certainly to start with, if you haven't done many before, is you set the social media channel a parameter, and we'll come on to these in a bit, but you set the social media a parameter to say, here is our audience. It's these type of people that we would like to see our ad. Here's £100, go and show it to these people. And the social media channel will then choose who within that parameter you've given it them is more likely to be interested in that ad and is more likely to respond in the way that you want to that ad. So that's another key thing with this, is you kind of want to point the social media channel in the right direction, but you don't want to make it too narrow too early in case you're not targeting the right people, and let the social media channel decide. For those of you that have been on some of the other courses we've done, or you've heard me speak before, there's something about the social media bubble, which is basically how the social media channels always want to show you things that you're likely to be interested in. So they're only going to show you ads that you're likely to be interested in, and you do need to kind of trust that system. So if we're running an ad to promote a certain service or a certain product, and we've given the social media channel a point in the right direction, and set them those parameters within that audience base, they will then choose who to target it to. So for example, we might set an audience base, and the potential size of that audience might be around 250,000 people. Now we've got £100 here to spend. 250,000 people are not going to see that ad because you haven't got enough money, basically. What will usually happen is, for about £100, you can expect between 8,000 and 12,000 people to see that ad. And what the social media channel will do is, within that parameter that you've set them of this audience of people of $250,000, you've got £100 here that will get your ad seen by about 10,000 of those people. The social media channel will then choose which of the 10,000 people within that $250,000 who are more likely to be interested in the thing that you provide and more likely do the thing that you want them to do off the ad. So there is a little bit of faith and trust you have to put in the system, but we run ads all the time for people, and it does work. You know, this is the way the algorithm of social media works. So that's kind of one of the big things, is let the social media channel decide. If you're not too sure to start with, let them decide, but give them that parameter, give them that push. As the ads evolve and you can see the age and the demographic of people who are engaging with it, if the social media channel's slightly off, it's not quite reaching the people that you wanted to, or that you're starting to maybe change your mind on who you want to reach, you can alter that parameter at any stage. One of the best things about social media ads is you can edit any of it at any stage. You're never set in. So from budget to who you're targeting to the wording, the imagery, the call to action, everything you can change at any stage. So you can tweak this as you go along. So if you find that the social media channel is kind of leaning towards one particular audience and it wasn't quite who you meant it to do, you can kind of force it back, change the parameters of that audience and get it going again. Hopefully that makes sense. As I said, as we go through, make a note of any questions, but we can do some at the end. In terms of the audience, the audiences themselves. So within social media, there are 3 types of audiences that you can do. As I said, Facebook's the kind of default one that probably a lot of people will think of. It is the biggest and the most cost effective of the 3. LinkedIn can be very good as well. Twitter's not so great, to be honest, if you're comparing all the others, but Facebook is a very powerful one. But on all these platforms, these principles of audience building are the same. So the first type of audience you can build is one called a saved audience. And this is what the majority of you will be familiar with. You can target people based on age, gender, location, and interests. So I live here in Worcester, and I could target people who are male and female between 35 and 45 who live in a 15-kilometre radius of Worcester city centre, who are interested in bike riding or cycling or dog walking. And it will bring that audience down. It will give me a rough guide of how many people are in that audience. And that's the first thing. And most people are aware of that. If you have done boosted posts, that's the type of targeting you can do. So age, gender, and location is quite a good one to initially bring things down. The interests one is a very interesting one in terms of what you can do. It's ever expanding, and it's also an interesting term. I'm using the word interested a lot at the moment, but it's also a very curious term that they use, because when I've run these courses before, so I would say, we can run an ad now to men and women 35 to 45 in Worcester who are interested in cycling. Now you might think, yeah, but how do they know I'm interested in cycling? And it's not that you've declared that you're interested in cycling. It used to be on your social media channel profiles, you would have to kind of put, I like cycling, or I like football, or I like a certain band, or I've read a certain book, or I've watched a certain film. You don't have to do that anymore. The way that the algorithm is kind of learning about you all the time in terms of the things you're interacting with, and it's basically tracking what you do. If you are a member of a cycling group, like I say, like a little cycling forum, Facebook group, say, or you visit certain websites that are tagged cycling, you're considered interested in cycling. So the term isn't what you're interested in, it's what the algorithm thinks you're interested in. And these algorithms are pretty good, to be honest. So when you think about, oh, well, how will they know if I'm interested in that or not? They will, and if they don't know much about certain people, they basically take an educated guess on who you're connected with. So the interests one can be a good one. They're all preset, but it is worth going to have a look and seeing the kind of different things, because normally we would speak to a client and we would say, okay, who would you like to target? What are they interested in? And you might come up with some that have been kind of part of your marketing strategy, or things that you think. What you don't know is what you don't know, and you can actually see the things that you can target people on, and that can really make a difference. So I've done this a lot with people. We were doing an ad for an insurance company, and it turns out you can target people using this saved audience tactic of people who travel regularly for business, frequent business travelers. Now they have an insurance policy which is specializes in that, and they didn't realize that you could target off that. So now they run an ad based on that. So it is worth just going in and kind of checking where these things are, because some of the things that you want to target might not be available, but there'll be a lot in there that you don't realize just how effective this is. So saved audience is the kind of basic one, really, to be honest with you, with this, where you can go age, gender, location, and interests. The second type of audiences that you can build, it's kind of referred to as custom audiences. So it is a bit of a mix-max, to be honest, but the main two within here are you can target people that have looked at your website. I'll explain how you do that in a minute. And you can also target people from email addresses that you may have, and I'll explain the GDPR concern that some of you may have in a minute as well. So those are the main two. You can also target people that have engaged with your Facebook page, or who have engaged with your LinkedIn, your Instagram page on Facebook, or you can target people that have watched the video or watched a certain percentage of any video you've got. But the main two that fall into this category that most people use is you can target people that have looked at your website. Now, it's something available that everybody can do. You don't spend more money. If you've got that £100 to spend on an ad, you can spend it on this way if you want. They don't charge you more to do this type of targeting. And basically what happens is this works with all the social media channels. You put what's called a pixel. It's a little bit of HTML code, and you put that on your website. It doesn't change the look, performance, or feel of your website, but basically that means that social media channel has a little tracker on your website, and then anyone who visits your website, they just kind of tag them, and they kind of track them, and then so they can see that 500 people that have looked at your website in the last 3 months, you can run an ad to those 500 people. And it's a very, very effective thing. It's called remarketing or retargeting. And to be honest, you've all been a victim of it at some stage in the last few years. The biggest example is Amazon. So you've looked to buy a product on Amazon, you haven't bought it, and then the product follows you around the internet. It's the same thing. And that tool, that facility is available for you. You just need to be able to set the thing up and put the tracking code on your website and then kind of follow it through that way. So it's a very, very good tool to use. And it's one that we always recommend that people put in place, even if you're not looking to run ads yet, and it might not be something that you'll be ready to do or want to do for the next 6 months. To be honest with you, it's worth putting that tool in place, because then at least it's gathering that data and you're building these audiences up before you actually spend any money on them. The second type that I mentioned with these, of the key two within custom audiences, is email addresses. So you can take a load of email addresses, you can upload them into the social media channel, into the social media platform. They will then match those email addresses with the accounts that they have on their huge, huge databases. And then you can run an ad to as many of those as they match. Now, pre-GDPR, they would actually tell you how many it matched. So you could upload 1,000 email addresses and they would come back and say, yeah, we've matched 600 of them. And then you can run an ad to those 600. Now, because of the GDPR things, they don't tell you how many they've matched anymore, but they just will tell you if they've been able to match some or not. And in terms of the GDPR with this, you would need the consent of those email addresses, because you're using their data to market to them. So that's, you would need to do that, but it can be a very effective tool to use if you've got that. A few people have kind of questioned it in the past, where they say, well, what's the point of us running an ad on Facebook or LinkedIn to an email address list when we've already got their email address? We can just send them an email. We'll just send them an email, maybe through like MailChimp. The difference is, and that is a good thing to do, and you should be doing that. The difference is that probably the open rate of that email that you send is probably around 20–30%. So not everybody's opening the email. You're effectively paying for the email to be opened in front of them, because obviously they will see the ad. The ad can be a bite-sized version of that email. So there's some slight differences there on how kind of engaged your audience is, but it's another thing to be aware of that you can do. The third type of audience is what's referred to as a lookalike audience. And this is based off the custom audiences we've just mentioned. So we can have a pixel put on a Facebook pixel or a LinkedIn pixel put on our website, and that is tracking everybody who looks at our website, and then we can run an ad to those people. So you can run an ad to the 500 people that have looked at your website in the last 3 months. Done. That's what you can set up. As I said, you don't get charged extra for that. What you can also do is you can say to the social media channel, okay, here's 500 people that looked at our website in the last month. Can you go away and find more people who are like these people? Now, they won't tell you what they do, but then they will profile those 500 people on age, gender, location, interests, internet activity, login on time, all sorts of manner of different things. And the social media channel will come back with usually around 450,000 people in the UK who are similar to the people who have visited your website. And you can then run an ad to those people. So what you start to do is you start to not really need the saved audience one, those first ones that I mentioned. So you're no longer having to second guess the age, gender, location of these people and the interests of these people. You can profile, you can use the people that look at your website, and you can profile that, and then you can find more people who are like the people that look at your website, or more people who are like the people who are on your database. So that's the big difference with it, and it is an incredibly powerful, incredibly effective tool. Once you've got those people, this is something we're doing for a client at the moment. Actually, they're looking to raise their awareness more down in Bristol, and we had the pixel on their website put in, so we have now got probably 700-800 people that have looked at their website in the last month. We can do a lookalike audience off that, so we can find more people who are like the people that look at their website. So that gives us 400,000 people in the UK who share similar attributes to those website visitors. But we can then reduce that down by location, so we're only targeting people in Bristol who are like the people that look at our client's website. So you can start to see just how much this goes and how many strings you've got to go on with this. It's a very, very effective way. And the lookalike audience, I find, is a brilliant tool for small businesses, because I'm sure everybody here would like more traffic to their website, and you might not have big numbers to your websites. That, that's fine. It's one of those things that everyone's striving to get more traffic to your websites. So if that initial number is quite low, lean in on the lookalike audience to find more people who are like the small database that you've got, or like the kind of small traffic numbers that you get to your website. To find more people like that is a very, very effective tool, and it can help you take the pressure off this. Okay, who's your target audience? Where do they live? How old they are? What are they interested in? You can still try these things and you can see if it worked, but as you get more into this, leaning on the social media channel in terms of finding lookalike audiences, finding people who are like the people that have already visited your website, or who are like the people that you've got email addresses for. A very, very effective way to do it. And as I said, you don't pay extra for this. This is still £100 to run an ad. 10,000 people will see the ad, but we're just using all the capabilities within the social media targeting tools now, that we're not just going out to anyone in the West Midlands who's over 30. We are now targeting a very, very core group of people who are likely to be interested in our service. And for that same amount of money, you still reach the same amount of people. You're just reaching a better group of people, to be honest. So those are the things, and it's really just an insight. A lot of these sessions are just to give you an idea of the effectiveness of this sort of thing. So I know for those of you that have been running ads on social media up to this point, those are the key things to do. And even if you have been doing some of these things around audience building, you've got your lookalike audiences, it's never a bad thing to refresh these. So I'm fortunate enough to have regular calls with the people from Facebook. I had one 2 weeks ago. I had a live Zoom call with one of their team over in San Francisco. And one of the things they were saying is, when you have these audiences, so if you've got an audience set up for website visitors and you've done a lookalike audience from that, it's not a bad thing to just refresh it. Keep that audience there if you want to keep running ads, but just maybe every couple of months, every quarter, ask the social media channel to find a new lookalike audience based off your web traffic or based off your database, because they're obviously always improving their lookalike audience kind of abilities to target people and identify people. So it just kind of keeps things fresh. It's not a bad thing to do. Also, just a note for those that have been using it or looking to use it more, and I mentioned about having small numbers and using lookalike audiences, it can be a very good thing. We find it's a very effective way to do this, but Facebook's kind of rule on this, although you can create a lookalike audience from any size of people. So, even if you just had a few hundred people look at your website in the last 3 months, you can create a lookalike audience from that and it will work. But in Facebook eyes, ideally, the number you want to get to is 1,000. That is that's the kind of breaking point when lookalike audiences really come into their own. So that's something to track. Obviously, you can track that through your Google Analytics and through your Facebook Analytics of once you've got 1,000 people having looked at your website over the last 3 months, and you can do that through a whole list of other campaigns and other digital marketing initiatives. But those are some little benchmarks of when you get to that kind of magic number, then that's the time to maybe redo your lookalike audience or to use it. Because obviously the more people you present to the social media channel in your audience, so if you've got 1,000 people in your audience and you give that to them to profile, they're going to come up with a better profile than if you've given them a couple of hundred. It's still pretty good, but the more you give them, the better it gets, basically. So yeah, just a few things there for those that are running the ads to start with. The ones that are new and are just a bit more kind of curious of how this works, hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight of just the depths almost that you can go to with this. There's whole other things. I run 3-hour, 4-hour training courses on this, to be honest. But what I wanted to do was just focus on the audience aspect, because it is the one that probably explains its capabilities the best. And it's the one that you can go in and actually do something about. Like I said, that message and that offer one is a little bit more, going to have to wait to see how your audiences respond. It depends ultimately what you're presenting to people. But this audience thing is definitely the first thing to try and get right. And it's the one that I think is probably the newest one. I think everybody understands the importance of message and call to action and imagery and things. But this audience building aspect of social media ads is such a powerful tool. So in summary for this, you can look to build your audiences. So this is where having content on your website where you might have a blog about things to do or advice on certain things. Obviously, through this system that we've been talking about, if you had a blog on your website which is about a certain issue or addressed around a certain pain point for people, and they go and click on that and read that blog, you could then run an ad to anyone who visited that page on your website, because you can be specific on individual pages on your website. It's not just anybody on your website. You can break it up quite effectively. And this is what we refer to as building audiences. So you want to start a bit of a content plan, really, where you've got content on your website that you want people to read and engage with. That's why blogs can be really good for this sort of thing. But in the background, you've got this building up that after a few months, after 3 or 4 months with this, once we get some good traffic to the page, that page of that website, we're going to run an ad to these sorts of people. As I said, don't forget about, I know we kind of did gloss over it a little bit, but it is still very important. Don't forget about your M and your O. So the message and the offer is still key elements to running an ad. And those are the things that you will have to do a bit of the A and B testing on. So they are important. Obviously, you can book one-to-ones with us if you do want more information about those sorts of things. So don't forget about those. They are important. And as I said at the start, please don't boost posts, because everything we've just gone through in terms of targeting people that have looked at your website, finding a lookalike audience of people who are like the people who look at your website, running ads in this sort of way, building audiences, this aspect of that is not available on boosted posts. So if you are serious about social media ads becoming a lead generator for you, then you're going to need to start using ads properly and not just kind of throwing boosts out there, to be honest.